Hi, this is the Cat's Library. I'll be your librarian today. The last video in the series didn't do too well. This is the same recording from that video. I let myself talk as much as I wanted until I'd covered everything that I wanted to talk about, but in this second half of the video, I got really nervous that this video was going on so long. As a result, pretty much every sentence had the words like or sort of. However, the overall analysis is still good, and I wanted more practice with this style of video editing. Engage! With the Star Searcher aliens, I want them to actually be calling for help. The mission was there in the first place, that they would come to the planet is because there was a distress call, but I want them to actually be calling for help. He was actually the one in communication with the director, like the old director and the new director, I'm guessing. And he's in communication with them. And these Star Searchers are the rebels, and they actually want help because their kingdom is under tyranny. And I want there to be actual tyranny because I also didn't make the society as tyrannical as I could have. Like, there was like a whole bunch of like, oh, this is sort of bad, but like, I'm not sure. Like, I made it a little bit too realistic. It needs to be a little bit more exaggerated, their society. And also because, like, I want more effort on the characters, less emphasis on the dragons. Because this isn't like a world building thing anymore where I'm just like explaining what the dragons are, because that's what I wanted to do for the first few episodes, is just trying to explain what the dragons were and like what their society was like. And then when it got to around the Sea Dragon City, and that's about where I started to do it. I also want the Dragon King and the Dragon Royalty to have more defined personalities and culture, because I put all of that effort into Kepler, and then when I put all of that effort into Kepler, then because he was supposed to be the actual villain behind it all, but then I switched it and made him not evil and made the Dragon King the ultimate evil. And because I did that, I didn't have any development for the king ready, and I couldn't think of an idea fast enough for like what he's like, and so he was just off screen for the whole adventure. And I don't really like the whole plot about the dam breaking. Like, there was a hydro dam that was like, the whole city that they live in is inside of a dam. Like, there's a dam, and it's sort of based a little bit off of the Puget Sound. And they live in the city in the middle of this sound that's made by a dam between two rocks, so like that. And the dam it holds everything in place. Originally what I wanted was for there to be an earthquake that would cause that, but then since I wanted the Dragon King to be the ultimate evil, I wanted him to like flood his own city. And that did not make any sense, but I needed a plot, so I just went along with it. I mean, technically, like I said earlier, that they're not evil enough, but they do execute people with no trial, so I guess that's bad. And that's a little bit exaggerated, like I'm talking about. But I didn't think of that until later on. And like, making people prisoners of the state and like sort of conquering other kingdoms and then saying, oh yeah, you're a prisoner, you technically get paid, but it's like for really cheap because you don't work there. It's, I don't know, it's sort of slimy, and I sort of like it, but basically I only did that so that like one of the characters would get mad about the slavery thing. But then I couldn't decide on whether Ari or Mike were the one with the temper problem. So I have like Mike getting angry about little things, but then Ari it sort of fit him better to have the anger problem. And so because like in his first introduction, he's getting into a fight with one of his professors, and like a verbal fight. I don't think that he actually punched. Yeah, he doesn't punch him or anything. He just like gets into a really heated academic thing, and then he like calls his professor a name or something, and like starts attacking the professor himself instead of like the actual problem. So it just makes more sense for Ari to do it. It's like more of a contradiction because Ari's like a little bit more on the rich, uppity, like sciencey side, and you don't really see that as often as a flaw. That, well, I guess it's like a different type of like expression. Like usually when it's like a richer character who has a temper problem, it's that they take it out on their subordinates. Ari doesn't have that problem. He doesn't like have anger and then just take it out on other people as much. It's usually that he does view people as equals. It's like is this an insult to my honor sort of thing. But yeah, so Ari with the temper problem, it's I don't know, it's like expressed differently. Like with Mike, I don't know, I said he was up in the mountains, but I was thinking that he's more like in the Rocky Mountains or like in the Olympic Mountains sort of thing, and that, but then like up in the mountains is sort of more hillbilly whenever I looked up like Americans who live in mountains. But I don't know, that's sort of what I'm thinking is more, yeah, he lives in like the Olympic mountain range, so like Washington and Oregon or something, and maybe a little bit more into the Idaho region. But since I'm not doing countries anymore, then that's not really a thing. But yeah, since he's the communication specialist, then that wouldn't really work for him to have a temper problem, because he's like the guy who's like always level-headed and can talk people into anything. So it makes sense that he would not have a temper problem, except I sort of wanted to give him that. That's what his role in the story was supposed to be originally. Like, I hadn't even decided what sort of character like he was going to be. I just wanted someone who was going to get mad at justified things. So it's like the dragon culture like has all of these problems to it because their government is corrupt, and I wanted someone to get mad at all of those things instead of like with Dahlia, she gets concerned and it's like, oh, you poor victim. And Mike was like, his role was supposed to be that he goes up and it's like, this is an injustice, I want to fight this sort of thing. And he was more of the fighter, but then I gave that to Ari. So Mike needs a new thing. Yeah, I think that makes more sense, that Ari is very passionate and Mike is more analytical. And Alani is very weird. Like, I also had this other idea for Alani, because, like, technically since she's dead and then reincarnated, or, like, I guess that's the wrong word. She's dead and then brought back to life. And so, like, she has to drain the energy from chickens, which was not in the original, but I think it would be funny that since like she technically was brought back to life, and like the whole thing about why Kepler was originally evil is because all of the people who lived in the Star Kingdom, I forgot what I called that, but all of those people are all like walking around all zombie-like because their energy was drained to give to Alani so that she could be alive. And that's because he would like have to keep draining them in order for her to go. So whenever they like, I think that part of it is that the energy can come back eventually, but it takes a really long time. And also, like, he'd have to drain like a lot of people in the kingdom, like most of them, if not all of them, in order to do that. And so, like, when she's on Earth, like, she actually has to drain the energy from things, but she doesn't want to use humans anymore because humans are people anymore, because that's immoral to her. So she drains the energy from animals. And I think that she's actually captured by the code breakers. And the whole thing with that is that since Mary Angela was caught on site, then it would make sense that Alani would, even though Alani is an alien and the Glassmen are natively from Earth. But they're, like, seen pretty much the same. And like, Alani's half human, too, so the whole thing about that is, like, even more unfair. But, yeah, she's captured by them on site because I didn't give her a backstory about why she ended up working for the humans in the first place. Like, I understood why she left, like, the Dragon Planet and she left the Star Kingdom, Aether City, something like that. I don't know. But she went there and went back to the humans because, like, she had less negative memories around that. So she would go there, and that makes sense, but it didn't make sense why she would join the Codebreakers in the first place and not tell them all of the stuff. She's new, and, like, I had, like, all of these weird rumors about her, but yeah, she's captured by them, and she's specifically captured by the director, thinking that the director, like the woman one, the one that I actually designed, the one who's the director in the present, like, that director is the one who captured her, and that's probably what helped her go up the ranks. And that's what the new story is going to be. And I'm going to have that, because that just makes more sense to me. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Like, I haven't talked about the side characters. Since there's not going to be as much stuff with the dragons in the rewrite, then I'm probably going to take them out or limit them. Which is sort of sad. But the side characters are, like, the rebels. Right here. The rebels. Side characters. I had all of them down, but I don't remember their names off the top of my head. So, like, if I did something, like, since they're the ones actually calling for help, then that's how they'll be integrated into the new plot. I sort of like the thing with Harper and his dad, but like, the whole thing about Harper and his dad was that it changed my mind so much about how they were supposed to work, because, like, I wanted it to actually, like, be intentional, that he actually got drunk and hurt his son, and, like, specifically, like, blinded his son, and then that's why he couldn't, like, do anything but play music. But then that just seemed a little bit harsh, and I don't know, that wasn't the sort of tone that I wanted to go for, to go that dark, and, like, have it like an actual, like, I wanted the redemption arc, and, like, him to the dad to actually have to condone for something. But so I changed it to, like, the dad didn't actually know it, and it did help with, like, explaining the Dahlia backstory sort of thing, but I didn't hint it up, like, well enough at first. So if I'm gonna have them back, then I need more hints, and maybe for them to see the whole story. So, like, Dahlia sees the whole story instead of, like, Harper telling her later, like, she sees, like, the dad get taken away, maybe. And then that's, like, sparks something in her, and then Ari's, like, the only one who knows, and, like, he keeps it secret for her, but then everyone else in the team's like, what's going on? Like, I'm thinking for this new one that since no one in the right mind would, like, in this new version, they'd let Alani or Glassman, like, go on a team, or Mike for that matter. Mike's a criminal, Mary Angela's a criminal, Alani is also technically an accomplice to a crime, because she never turned Kepler in, and, like, even if Kepler's not evil, he did do all of these terrible things, and she didn't, like, turn him into the cops or anybody or try to get help. She just left. So she captured him and left, and, like, I guess, like, since she's technically, I don't actually think that she is royalty at this point. She's just his girlfriend. I don't think that they have, like, girlfriend, fiance, whatever. She didn't actually get married to him, and he's actually the one with the title. So she would not have any authority to actually do that on her own. so that might form a problem later on. So she did some vigilante justice there. So she is a very criminally. Dahlia and Ari are probably the most likely to actually get sent on a mission. Like, Dahlia not as much, because like originally it's because she sees the Glassman. I think what actually is going to happen this time is that Ari, she sees Ari around. Like, she follows someone who works for the organization around, and she runs into Ari, and she's like, oh, he seems normal. And so she, like, applies to be his intern or something, or, like, his secretary, and then he, like, is like, okay. And then she gets into the organization that way instead of, like, directly going in. Like, she also sort of had a temper problem in this book. But, you know, I'm gonna change that because that's Ari's job. But yeah, she doesn't have a temper problem. She's not, like, assertive. Like, she has to learn to be more assertive. And so, like, that would probably be the way that she'd do it. She'd do it more, like, roundabout instead of, like, just going up to people and demanding what they want. Because that's what all of these other characters are for. Like, Dahlia needs to be the quiet one for balancing purposes. But, like, she'll learn to speak her mind by the end of it. And then, like, I'm gonna say Mike, because he needs to learn to listen to people. Because he talks to people, and he's like, oh, yeah, I can talk to you, and, like, I can convince you to do anything I want, but he never really listens. So that'd probably be an interesting pairing. Like, even though Dolly is married to Ari. But, like, they can still be friends. They're family friends. Friends with Ari and Dahlia as a unit, not just Dahlia. So it should be completely fine. But yeah, Mike and Dahlia getting teamed up for some mission where Dahlia learns to talk and then Mike doesn't. Maybe Mike gets, like, a mouth or throat injury, like someone hits him in the throat during, like, a fight or something, and then he can't talk for, like, a few days, and then he's, like, all raspy or loses his voice or something. And then Dahlia is the one who, like, always listens to people, so she's the one who can communicate. And, like, with Glassman here, Mike's the only one who can translate Glassman, so that would also be sort of funny. Because, like, she speaks in sign language and by flashing images across her surface. And so it's sort of complicated. So some people could understand her. She has to, like, really try in order to be understood by the vast majority of people. So Mike's the one who knows how to read her. So Dahlia would be interpreting for Mike, and then Mike would be interpreting for Glassman. And that could be funny. And I like Zell. But the whole thing about Zell was supposed to be evil, and then I forgot that I made the whole society evil. And since she is fighting against the government, then by process of elimination, she probably should be a good person. And with Zell, like, this is more side character stuff, in case, like, the switch just scared you. But yeah, with Zell, I don't know if I actually want her to be evil or not. Because that would actually add dynamism. So I want her to be an antagonist. It's like the whole thing about Zell and the whole thing about the forest dragons, who were Tayo and Raffi. The whole thing about them that I planned out is that Zell works for, like, a side organization. She works for the swamp dragons, who are not incorporated into the Empire yet. And she works for them, and she's against, like, the main, like, sea dragon government. And then the forest dragons are very for the sea dragon government. And then both of them realize that it doesn't really matter, that they're just doing sort of immoral to awful things, like, just because other people told them to, and that they didn't really, like, search to find someone No, it's not that. Because Zell doesn't really listen to orders. She's a little bit of a loose cannon sort of detective type. I did not think of her as a detective. She was like a bounty hunter, but then she became a detective. So she's one of those, but she's like a private eye detective, sort of, like, doesn't really listen to people. And it's the forest dragons blindly follow commands, and then Zell, like, she knows that the sea dragon empire is bad, and so she does everything that the sea dragon empire wouldn't like. But it's like both of them are using other people, and they aren't thinking critically to determine what is moral and what is not. Because, like, I think that, like, the vast majority can sometimes be right. So if you have, like, an organization that you follow, it can sometimes be right, and it can sometimes have a moral thing. But it's sometimes they aren't. So you can't really, like, blindly say, oh, this organization, like, whatever it is, like, big company, like, just by nature of it being a big company, it can never do anything right, sort of thing. Like, that's wrong, because, like, they could sometimes do things right, but it's not like just because it's a big company it's always right. It's like the company is run by people, and people can be flawed, and people can be great. They can be both things. So it's supposed to determine where actually, like, things that are moral will come from with them. But I don't know how to get that story and make it make sense with these guys, other than maybe Mike and Glassman, maybe, because, like, Glassman, like, tells Mike, like, what's moral because she, like, accidentally gets him incorporated into her cult, and that he actually believes everything she tells him, and then he figures out that she's lying. And I actually want that during the story. So the whole lying thing is revealed by this, revealed during the story. It's not like in the backstory, like pre-write, like the lineup video. They do that, and then that goes, and then that could probably work with this, because it's like he's blindly listening to someone, and they're blindly listening to someone, and so then the Forest Dragons and Mike sort of have a bit of an alliance, but then, like, Alani and Zell probably have a bit of an alliance too, because Alani, like, got hurt by a corporation and, like, her boyfriend, technically. And so Alani probably is she's sort of in the middle ground between these two, actually, because it's like she sort of is more open-minded to different types of things, so she can understand both sides of the issue. But Mike probably could understand them more. No, Mike can understand Zell more. I am very sorry about that. Like, Zell, because she's, like, a rebel, and Mike is naturally a rebel. Alani is naturally middle. The Glassman is naturally someone who actually lies to people. So she's none of these. And Ari and Dahlia. So Ari and Dahlia, they don't lie to each other. But, wait, Dahlia. Yeah, Dahlia would be the one who is like, the corporation is probably sometimes right. Ari actually works for the corporation. Like, canonically, I think that he would actually be the only one who would actually really work for them, because he has the only really reason to work for them, because all of these others don't really follow orders that well, except sort of Mike. But Mike follows orders from people based off of vibes, and he doesn't do well in big corporations. He does better if it's like he knows the person and it's like smaller and a tight-knit unit. He doesn't like, oh, the higher-ups who I've never met, who live in a completely different state than me, have written a memo that I must do this, sort of thing. He likes someone to tell him face-to-face what to do, and he likes that person to be the highest up on the chain, if at all he likes to be in charge. Because that was the whole thing with him, is that he's the one who always ends up being in charge. And then Alani steals his thunder. And then Ari learns leadership. I'm not sure Ari actually should learn leadership. Not everyone is cut out to be a leader. I don't really like those sort of stories where it's like everyone just assumes that because of superfluous traits that you're going to be one way. So let's just have Mike be the leader. Like, just flat out, because Alani doesn't listen to people at all. She just goes off by her own and does her own mission. So, like, just having her be the de facto leader doesn't make any sense. So, goodbye for now. I might do more of this occasionally, but I did get very thorough this time and just went crazy. Wow. So, yeah, we'll see how long this ends up being. Bye! Like, subscribe, comment. Watch the previous episode in this series. Watch the Dragon Planet First Draft videos. If there are more episodes in this series, I'll probably change up the format. Goodbye!